Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Muzammil Sheikh from PD Hinduja Hospital, and I am talking on behalf of PD Hinduja Hospital, where this is a great initiative of Good Living Drive by Hinduja Hospital, wherein we try to cover up many diseases, common problems, and try to have a platform where we can communicate with our patients and everyone around. So this month, 4th February is observed as a World Cancer Day. So we utilize this opportunity to have some awareness, some dialogue about common cancer. So I have chosen breast cancer being the most common cancer in at least the urban cities in the country, and it is rising at an alarming rate, if you ask me. So I thought this will be the cancer appropriate for today's discussion. However, there are many other audience who will be interested to ask questions about other cancers and other questions general regarding cancer. So I think the chat box can be utilized for that. Any question that comes to your mind regarding cancer care, cancer treatment, advances in cancer, any type of cancer, please don't hesitate. Share your question in the chat box, and as much time can permit, we will try to have a discussion on all those topics also. So I think we should go ahead with the session today. The flow of this today's session will be that there will be a very short, brief presentation from my end, a PowerPoint regarding basics of breast cancer, how it is diagnosed, symptoms, and basic treatment. And then this will be followed by an open forum for questions, not only related to breast, but other cancers also. So, we try to make most of it in the discussion session. I will share my screen with you all. Just give me a minute. Yeah, my screen is visible to everyone. Sonam can confirm.
Doctor, it is visible.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so today's talk, what I have selected is breast cancer awareness. We'll go ahead with what is first the basic thing, what is cancer? What do we understand by the term cancer? Cancer is nothing but a disease which is caused by an uncontrolled division of abnormal cells in a part of the body. So our body is so well constructed by God that every single minute, every single second, there are multiple mutations or abnormal cells being formed in our body. Yet we don't have cancer. So everyone is at risk of developing cancer every single second, actually. But all these abnormal cells are then taken care by your own sensitive body system or defense mechanism, immune mechanism, where any cell which is abnormal is not allowed to divide into 2 more and 4 more and so on. So it is cleared on that first filter itself. And there are a few more filters after that. So abnormal cells are being formed all the time because we are exposed to so many chemicals, toxins, radiations from the environment, but we don't get cancer so commonly. And the reason is your immune system or the innate body system is fantastic machine which is designed by God. However, sometimes this machine doesn't function well. And these abnormal cells, which are not supposed to get divided, they divide into 2, and then it keeps on multiplying in exponential manner, and they form a mass which is called as tumor. This tumor can be benign or malignant. We say malignant when the same tumor or mass of cells get the power to go inside the blood vessels and then to spread to other parts of the body. So this is called as a malignant cancer or a metastatic cancer. What is breast cancer? Breast cancer is again uncontrolled growth in a particular part of the body. Here we're talking about breast cancer. So it is breast. Usually starts off with an inner milk lining, which gets some abnormal cells, and then they start multiplying, and eventually they spread to other parts of the body. Why breast cancer we are discussing today? Because there are few reasons, and one of them is early detection can save your life. And that is the whole idea of discussing today. So creating an awareness about breast cancer and cancer in general. Where is India placed? 1 in 22, some data say 1 in 29 women suffers from breast cancer in India. Just to put a different perspective to it, 1 woman every 4 minutes is diagnosed with breast cancer, and 1 in every 13 minutes dies because of breast cancer in India. Now that is very shocking data, but yes, it is true. So that is the importance of breast cancer. We need to be very careful, discuss about it, know everything about it, know the preventive methods and measures so that we can be smarter. Pink Ribbon was an initiative for the same breast cancer awareness way back in 1982. Suzanne Komen, that is, she was a patient and then she unfortunately couldn't make. The sister really was moved by that incident in her life and she took this breast cancer awareness and she has really done a great job by this Pink Ribbon initiative where we try to, have October as a month, breast cancer awareness month every year. We have a lot of seminars, activities with general public and various other medias and platforms try to create awareness about this disease. As we know that early diagnosis can possibly cure or can reduce the can improve the outcome in many patients. So this we have already seen. So early detection saves life. Check often and encourage those who do the same. Unfortunate part of this is that only 1 in 2 Indian women with breast cancer survive in the first 5 years, which means that more than 50% approximately will not survive once they're diagnosed with breast cancer. If you see this figure on the left side, worldwide, almost 1.67 million, of which 5,22,000 deaths. And in India, 1,45,000. The recent data is 1,80,000 and the death is 87,000. So which means that roughly more than 50% of the patients in India diagnosed with breast cancer will die in the next 5 years. And breast cancer is the leading cancer among women in India. With the age commonest affected is 40 to 50 years. Now this is at least 10 years earlier than the Western counterpart, and that is possibly because of the age pyramid which we have. We have a lot of younger population in our age pyramid, and that is one of the reasons. And unfortunately, it's not a good thing to have because the population base is very large. So naturally, we are going to have a number of cases of breast cancer. And also, these are the contributory population, the young population who contributes to the society. So losing them is really, scary. Why all this fuss about early detection of cancer, and does it really make any difference? Well, it does make a difference. If you see not only breast, across the board, on the right side of your screen, you can see early detected cancers and late detected cancer. What is the survival rates? How many percent of patients will be alive at 5 years? In cervical cancer, if detected early, 93%. If detected late, only 15% will survive. It's a huge difference. Same is true for breast cancer, colon cancer, or melanoma of skin. What is the other benefit of having early detection? Early detection simply means less invasive treatment. For breast particularly, a small, simple excision of the tumor with less trauma, less pain, and of course, less cost. Less chemotherapy or no chemotherapy in many patients, no radiation many times if the tumor is picked up early. So there are a lot of benefits of early detecting cancer, especially breast cancer. So that is the whole impetus or thrust today, that we should try to detect it early so that we can treat and cure most of them. So if you're vigilant, it usually pays off in the long run. A little bit about the anatomy. So the breast tissue drains through glands, and these are called the lymph nodes, through which this tumor usually spread, and then they spread eventually to the other parts of the body. So if you have a breast which looks normal, but there is a gland in the axilla, don't ignore it. You have to report to the gynecologist or the treating cancer expert there in your area. Now, rise of advanced breast cancer in developing, underdeveloped countries. What are the common causes, or what we postulate is lack of knowledge and education, because people are simply not aware or not educated. They ignore and they come at a very advanced stage. And the whole initiative of awareness is based on that premise that we can slowly cut the pie and make this population a very small population. Poverty and local customs. India is developing country. There are really poor sectors, especially in the villages and all. And the local system also bars many to take adequate medical help. The females are shy. They don't move to doctors, especially male doctors in some communities. So it is a lot of barriers I see in our country where we don't get an adequate medical access, and not exposing them to even physicians is something which we still struggle with in villages. Delay in referral of patients from underprivileged remote areas is still, the tumor becomes incurable when they come to us, unfortunately. What are the medical risk factors we define for developing breast cancer? Early menarche, late menopause. So both things mean that your hormone level in the body, or your body is exposed to hormone estrogen for a longer time. If you get your menses very early, if you get 1 or 2 years earlier than the average of 13 to 14 years, the risk increases by 2 to 3 times. Same is true for the menopause. So more the period of menstruation or ovarian active cycle, you're going to have more exposure to the hormones and a risk of developing breast cancer. Nulliparity, lack of breastfeeding. Now, breastfeeding is an important protective mechanism to prevent breast cancer. So there is a clear finding that those who have, breastfed the kids less or who have not delivered kids, they have a higher risk of developing breast cancer. Hormone replacement therapy, especially if you take a long or prolonged hormone replacement therapies for your postmenopausal symptoms, usually a combined one has got a little bit more higher risk than estrogen only. Ionizing radiation, meaning you have been radiated for, say, another cancer, say lymphoma in childhood to the chest wall, you may develop breast cancer when you grow, about 20, 25 years. So exposing to ionizing radiations. Obesity is one major contributor, I feel. It is under discussed, but I think that is one of the major risk factors for not only breast, but other cancers like endometrium, colon, prostate, ovary. Alcohol intake is associated with breast cancer, increased incidence. High fat diet, again, it goes to the obesity. Tobacco use has been associated with breast cancer. And there is a small percentage, but yes, significant one of hereditary cancers or, hereditary acquired cancers. One of the examples is the Angelina Jolie phenomena. We may discuss that later. And there are certain factors which are associated with decreased risk of breast cancer. So when you are estrogen only use for women with hysterectomy, so the incidence in invasive breast cancer decreases by the median use of 5.9 years. Exercising, so that is not to be stressed upon again, exercising strenuously for more than 4 hours per week is associated with a decreased breast cancer risk by 30 to 40%. So it's a simple measure which we can possibly adopt as the lifestyle modification, and the effect may be greatest for the premenopausal woman of normal or low BMI. Early pregnancy. Women with full-term pregnancy before age 20 have 50% decreased breast cancer risk compared to nulliparous women, or those who give birth after the age of 35 years. Now, I think this point, most of us, we are from cities, we can possibly relate to this. Now, no one is getting married at age 23, 24. No one is getting pregnant, or very few will get pregnant at the age of 25, 26. So I don't want to push this trend that you get married early and get pregnant by 20. But this is data. What I'm telling is that there is a clear, benefit. If you have your first child, you should have your first child at least at an early age, if possible, say 24, 25. It is just a suggestion, but I know there are different social pressures where we work in. But this is data, so I need to share the data call we all have to take. With this current corporatization of the entire thing, many things have been affected for females. They are all, very independent, and they are going to work. So naturally, the age of first child is pushed. On average, what I see in cities, I may be wrong, but it is around 25, 26 years. And not only that, the breastfeeding, the amount of breastfeeding which should be given also reduces significantly, because you can imagine a girl who's working in Bombay Central and staying in Titwala. She has to spend 2 hours each way in the train. So, and she'll be whole day in the office. So these all are barriers where, these things do affect the health of females. We are advocating a longer leave, which is there in Canada. In Canada, just for your information, 18 months is the leave if a woman gives birth to a child, which is quite, I think, that is what we should aim, if possible, 18 months of paid leave. So that is what is one which will encourage, women not get worried about joining back early. Within some offices, I know it's just 3 months or maybe 6 months, and they will join back. So these all are things which we possibly, I don't know, but we can change, because these are all modifiable factors as I see. Certain are not modifiable, like being a female, you are at an increased risk of developing breast cancer. Being aging, so if you age, you're going to get increased risk of breast cancer. So these are not modifiable ones, but modifiable ones which we can do is, this work environment I'm talking about, a little bit early age of first kid, exercise, maintaining ideal body weight, all those things will possibly, add a lot of value in reducing the incidence of breast cancer. What do I need to know? Who gets breast cancer? Anyone can get breast cancer. For example, did you know that the older a woman is, more likely she is to get breast cancer? Although it is rare, young women in their 20s and 30s can get breast cancer. And this, now we see in our societies that, younger females, 30, 35 years, also getting breast cancers. Getting breast cancer at a younger age has got many implications, right from, marital issues, job issues, health issues, because then they're going to be on, if they're hormone positive, on some hormone replacement therapies, which will curtail their ovarian functions, which will cause bone density loss, irritability, many other postmenopausal symptoms which come early. So there are many issues if a patient gets breast cancer at an early age. You have to also look for genetic, inheritance pattern in them. White women are more likely to get breast cancer than any other racial or ethnic group. Men can also get breast cancer, although it is rare, but it's a known entity. We do treat occasional patients of male breast cancer. Can I prevent breast cancer? Because no one knows exactly what it causes, there are no sure ways to prevent breast cancer. So what I see is the modifiable and non-modifiable factors. So maintaining a healthy weight, regular exercise, and a nutritious diet, breastfeeding, limiting our exposure to estrogen, the combined hormone therapies, alcohol and smoke, this possibly will help us in reducing the incidence of breast cancer. Now coming to the topic of, are you breast health aware? Which means that how much do you have the understanding about breast cancer? So these are some signs and symptoms, or some pictorial diagram I have purposely kept so that we can have a visual, understanding of what I'm talking about. Most common, lump or thickening in the breast. It's often painless. So this is very important to understand. Painful things are usually not cancers. Less than 10% of painful breast lump will be cancer. Most of them are painless. Any discharge or bleeding from the nipple has to be taken as an ominous sign, has to be reported immediately, no delay darling if there is a bleeding or any discharge from the nipple. Any inversion of the nipple getting inverted or sucked in, that possibly is one of the early signs of a cancer sitting just below the nipple. Change in the color or appearance of the areola is a sign of breast cancer. And then diffuse redness or pitting of the skin over the breast, like a skin of an orange called a kudu orange, which is actually a sign of advanced breast cancer. So you have to look for all these changes which I've just mentioned and be very vigilant. Any of these changes come, you're supposed to not ignore them, don't postpone, don't procrastinate. You have to go to your local gynecologist or medical oncologist or surgical oncologist and get yourself checked. We have some tools to pick up early breast cancer in otherwise healthy people and possibly give less treatment, and these are called as screening. So one of them is breast self-examination. I will discuss a bit about that in a while. Clinical breast examination done by the doctor whom you visit. Mammogram is a radiology of the breast, and sonography is a sonography or ultrasound of the breast. It's important to do a monthly breast self-examination, although there is not enough data all over the world to say that this really changed the mortality or outcome. But in a resource-constrained country like us, where we don't have a very active program where we are screening, at each corner of the country, this possibly can help, to reduce or pick up early tumors. I will just show you this pictorial diagram of breast self-examination. For breast self-examination, what you require is to, you have to understand that your health is very important as a female, and that is the priority. So if you understand that part, that yes, I have to be very, very, aware about my health and take care of my health, then only this works. And how does it work? Just it requires say 15-20 minutes once in a month. That is not much for your own health. Examining yourself, the best place is still, I think, the washroom, in front of a mirror. You can expose till the navel and see for any asymmetry. You examine your breast and see in the mirror, arms up, down, and on the side of your hip. You see if there is any asymmetry, if both the nipples are in the same line or not. If there is any discrepancy in the height, possibly it's an early sign. Then with the flat of your finger, 4 fingers flat, which is shown on the left side down panel, you can press the fingers on your breast so that it touches the chest wall and just slowly move around in circular manner. If there is any small nodule, you'll pick it up, and then you can repeat the same thing by lying down flat also. You can squeeze the nipple to check for any discharge or under the nipple last, and this will possibly pick up any early sign of any nipple issues related to the cancer. So these are all the pictorial diagram which I'm showing so that you get a visual impression about what we are talking about. And when to pick up, clinical examination is done by a doctor or a trained nurse practitioner annually for women over 40 years of age, done at least every 3 years for women between 20 to 40 years, more frequent based on your family history and other histories. Mammogram is a simple X-ray of the breast, which is very, very sensitive to pick up smaller lesions. Tumors which are diagnosed because of mammographic screening are usually very small. They require minimum treatment and they are highly curable. Other imaging like breast ultrasonography is usually an add-on. Mammography still remains the gold standard. How do we diagnose? Once we find something on a sonography or a mammography, you can do a simple needle aspiration or a biopsy. The biopsy is the most preferred one because it gives a good amount of tissue, not only for diagnosis, but also for doing certain studies like hormone status and other things which can possibly help you in deciding the treatment, whether some patients require chemotherapy before, followed by breast conservation surgery, and some require after. So this helps in deciding the type of therapy which you're going to give. There are other modalities of investigation like PET scan or MRI. These are helpful in doing a treatment planning. Suppose the tumor is not spread to any other part, which we confirm from a PET scan, we can offer them surgery. If it is spread to other parts, we may avoid surgery. We may just start some form of chemotherapy. What is the treatment option today for breast cancer management? We have surgery, which has evolved from a radical surgery done 200 years back to breast conservation surgery to lumpectomies and mastectomies. Currently, we are doing a lot of over 70 to 80% of our patients here at Hinduja will have a breast conservation surgery done, wherein the outcome doesn't change, the outcome remains same, but cosmetically it is quite good and it gives a lot of post-surgery, body image confidence to the patient when they move into their life. Radiation therapy is the second modality of treatment, which is not given to all patients. It is given to only those patients where we have done a breast conservation surgery, we have saved the breast, so we need to cover with radiation. Or if the tumor has gone to the glands, that is where we give radiation. Chemotherapy, again, with newer modalities, newer diagnostic tests. We have so many molecular markers which have come up now. So in hormone positive patients in breast cancer, for an example, let's say 20 years back, we used to give chemotherapy to everyone or most of them. Now with hormone positive breast cancer in an elderly female, we have certain tests called as Oncotype DX or MammaPrint. With those tests, around 60 to 70% time we are not giving chemotherapy to these patients who are hormone positive. So these newer techniques of knowing the tumor better has helped us in avoiding chemotherapy in many patients. Although, just to make the point very clear, that many patients do require chemotherapy based on whether they're hormone positive, negative, whether they're HER2 positive, what is the aggression of the tumor. So there are many factors which we take into an algorithm before we say that someone requires chemotherapy or doesn't require chemotherapy. So you should never equate your case or anyone known to you to others saying that, oh, she didn't require chemotherapy, why I am getting chemotherapy. It is your doctor who is in the best position to decide best for you. Hormone therapy is a very effective therapy for hormone positive breast cancers. Currently, in many patients, we don't use chemotherapy. We just give hormone therapy to them, and they usually have a better outcome. Targeted therapies are newer therapies which are available for treating breast cancers. This is based on whether we find particular signals on the breast cancer cells called as HER2 positive. If someone is having that particular signal, there is a very effective drug called as trastuzumab, which can be given, which can cure, which almost reduces the chance of cancer coming by 50%. So it is a big add-on to our treatment armamentarium. Other things which have come up, definitely worth mentioning, is immunotherapy in breast cancer. Although it is not the ideal cancer for immunotherapy treatment, but yes, one subtype of breast cancer called as triple negative breast cancer, where there is enough data for using immunotherapy in metastatic setup. Breast conservation surgery, we have discussed. We have moved from the era of radical surgeries to breast conservation or preservation areas where it's very difficult sometimes to find out which breast has been operated. To that level, we have gone, in the surgical refinements, oncoplastic surgeries, plastic surgeries combined with that, and it gives a really good cosmetic outcome. Radiation therapy, also the machines have become so advanced here nowadays that the risk of causing damage to the surrounding tissue is reduced considerably. The technique which is given is called the tangent ray, where the rays just touch the chest wall and move out. They don't enter the body much. Then there are other techniques like accelerated partial breast irradiation, which is one of the preferred approaches, where in a very short duration you can kill the cancer cells without getting exposed for a longer time. Hormone therapies we have discussed in detail. I will not go into details of this. Stage 4, unfortunately, around say 30 to 40% of our cases are stage 4, and it's nearly 50% of most common cancer, which can be prevented by eating well, staying lean, more active, not smoking, protecting your skin, and some cancers, cervical cancers, by getting vaccinated. So prevention is your best defense. A breast examination can be done by you or your clinician, and should start at age 20. This is self-breast examination. Examining your breast will help you to become familiar with what is normal for you and learn how to spot changes in your breast, and that may need to be reported to a doctor. Factors that can help lower the risk of breast cancer. Again and again, I'm stressing healthy weight, not smoking, physical activity, no alcohol use, and prevention strategies. Be proactive, get an annual screening done. Don't wait to get sick before taking action. So what in summary is that we are witnessing a breast cancer increase in many younger patients also. Number of breast cancer cases in all the age groups is rising. More than half of the patients still present to doctors in advanced stages, and breast cancer in young tend to be more aggressive than the older population, and the survival is a little bit inferior. I will just stop my presentation here, and then we can, if there are some questions in the chat board, we can go ahead with that, or I don't know whether the host can enable for asking direct questions. I will be happy to take. Thank you so much.
Thank you, doctor, for such an informational session. So now we start with the question answers. The first question is, how can I lower my chances of getting breast cancer?
Sorry, I was. Yeah. So I will take the first question, which was how I can reduce my risk of getting breast cancer. So again, the same thing which I've spoken in the talk also is, there are certain modifiable factors, certain non-modifiable factors. So those which we can modify, which is in our hand, is to exercise, to maintain an ideal body weight, to get married at an appropriate age. Now this appropriate age is a very variable factor, but say around 20 to 23 years if possible. And first pregnancy is what I believe is very, very vital. So the first pregnancy should be at the age of around 22 years if possible. These are risk factors which will, and it's a multifactorial. So breast cancers are not one reason, like smoking causes lung cancer. It's not so true for breast cancer always. So, reducing alcohol intake, avoiding smoking altogether, reducing the intake of hormone replacement therapies, if at all, consult your gynecologist and take a lower dose and take for a shorter time, take estrogen only. So all these things are where you can possibly modify things and reduce your chance of getting breast cancers.
Yeah. So the next question is by Mrs. Madhuri. Does a lump in the breast positively lead to breast cancer if it persists for many years?
So two things are there, Madhuri. One is that a breast lump which is painless, you have to investigate because it can turn out to be cancer. But at the same time, not all lumps in the breast are cancerous. In fact, most of them are non-cancerous, and they're called as, various types of non-cancerous lump can be there. Something like a fat lump or a fat globule called as lipoma, which can be there in the breast for years and not change in size, not cause any discomfort. So that is a benign or a sada gland. So this can remain in your breast for many years. There are other ones called as fibroadenomas or adenomas. Now these are again tumors of the breast. They're not cancerous. They are there. They can remain there for many years, especially in younger females. We see there is increased pain in those areas just before the periods, and then the pain goes off once the periods are over, and this remain for many years. Sometimes post marriage, post first childbirth, they disappear. So these are again simple tumors or sadi gant. They are not cancerous, but you as a common man, it may be difficult for you to always pick up or the difference between a cancerous and non-cancerous. What I suggest is that if there is anything suspicious, any lump, at least let it be examined by a trained person, so that he ensures that, oh, this is like a fat gland and this is like a fibroadenoma or adenoma, and that is possibly the way to go ahead. Next question.
The next question is by Mugdha. Can CT scan detect breast cancer?
Yes, Mukta, CT scan can detect breast cancer, but the purpose of doing CT scan is not to pick up breast cancer. It is usually done for other reasons. Say someone is doing it for tuberculosis of the lung, and incidentally you pick up a breast cancer. So CT scan is not the modality for screening or diagnosing breast cancer. The modality for diagnosing breast cancer is mammogram, which is a different quality or high quality X-ray done for the breast tissue, which can pick up even smaller lesions, and it can guide us whether it looks malignant or not. But CT scan is not used for diagnosing breast cancer.
Okay. The next question is by Arun. My wife's breast is paining with some material pulse like coming out. Does she have a chance of breast cancer?
Yes, Arun. So very unlikely the way you have described that she will have breast cancer, but at the same time, you need to see your local gynecologist or medical oncologist for getting this thing checked properly. Any discharge, anything coming should be taken with a lot of caution. You can't delay that. So please go to the local doctor there, get it checked. More likely it will be infection, but one can't be sure at all. You have to get it checked by an expert.
Okay. Does a lump in the breast lead to cancer if it has been for years?
So if it has been for years, unlikely, but suppose there is a sadi gant. So what is the chance of a fibroadenoma getting converted to a cancer? Less than 1%. So there is a small chance that if there is a tumor in the breast for many years, it will convert to cancer, but you should be careful, watchful. Suppose you have shown a lump in the breast and the doctors have said that this is not cancer. So what is your job? Your job is to keep a watch on it. Moment you find there is anything unusual in that, either there's an sudden increase in the size of the nodule, or if there is any unusual skin changes on it or any bleeding around it, you should report it to the doctor immediately, because small percentage can convert to cancer, but that is very small.
Okay. Sometimes lumps are movable when touched. Are breast cancer lumps hard and stay at one place? What's the difference? I got detected with fibrodermia earlier.
Correct. So that is what the question we have discussed earlier. So fibroadenomas are lumps in the breast which are many times mobile. They keep on moving in all directions. Breast cancers, however, in the initial stages can also be mobile. So if there is something mobile, don't assume that, oh, it can never be cancer. Although breast cancers or the cancers truly will be a little bit more harder, over a period of time, they become fixed to the underlying tissues and the chest wall. But that, I guess, is a very late stage of the tumor. You have to report any lump, again and again I'm impressing upon, any lump which you find has to be seen, examined by a qualified person to say that whether this is benign or non-cancerous versus cancerous. And once he assures that this is non-cancerous, then you can keep a watch on it. And then once in a year or so, if possible, go back to him, let him check again. And any change, any time during the observation period, sudden increase in size, bleeding, or change in the skin color, you are supposed to report to your treating doctor immediately.
Okay, the next question is by Mona. My mom had breast cancer and we are 4 sisters. So many people say it comes in 2nd and 4th number child. Is it true?
So what Mona asked is a very important question and very relevant one. This is what we have discussed earlier, is about hereditary breast cancer. So, whether a person has got breast cancer and whether the daughters in that family or other person will get breast cancer depends upon various risk factors. So you have to, there's something called as, genetic counseling, and we screen the entire history first, try to understand how many have got cancer. And this cancer, the genetic cancer of breast usually is seen in the female side of the family, the maternal side. So we take a history of whether the patient's sister or her mother or maternal aunt or someone on that lineage has got any cancer of the breast or the ovary, and especially less than 50 years. So if a breast cancer or an ovarian cancer occurs in a person or a female less than 50 years, we definitely have to go back and track all the history. If there is anything suggestive, we definitely need to investigate them for a hereditary cancer. Any patient who's less than 50 years anyway should be investigated for something called as genetic cancers, and this is called as genetic assessment of risk of breast cancer in the patient herself, the second cancer which can come to her, and the other family members who are normal right now. So the commonest test which is there and the commonest abnormality is called as BRCA, breast cancer antigen, BRCA1 and 2. These are genes which are there in our system which continuously repair the abnormal cells, which I discussed at the beginning of the talk, that there are a lot of abnormal cells generating every second, but our body system takes care of them, and this is taken care by a thing called as BRCA. So once this gene is faulty, then you cannot repair the abnormal cells, and they multiply and form tumors. So this is the commonest modality or abnormality which we find in patients who have hereditary cancers. One of the examples is Bollywood, Hollywood actress Angelina Jolie, whose mother was breast cancer survivor, and then eventually she found that she checked herself for this gene called as BRCA, and it was found to be positive. In peak of her career, she opted for a very radical but the correct surgery called as bilateral prophylactic mastectomy, which means that she removed both of her normal looking breasts, because there was a very high chance, around 50 to 60% chance in her lifetime she will develop cancer. She said, I don't want to take that risk. So she got the breast removed, and of course surgery and replacement with artificial ones. All those things were done. So what I mean is that this concept and this of checking genetic abnormality and genetically inherited one is not a simple one. It's a complex one. So if my patient comes and asks me, sir, should I get everyone checked? So I will not advise them usually. There is a genetic counselor with us. I will ask this patient to go to the genetic counselor. They will do a pre-test counseling. So before sending for BRCA testing, you need to talk to the family, the entire family, the daughters and all, and then do the test. Because if you do the test and she turns out to be positive, this patient, the problem is not only for her, the problem is for the daughters, because there is a 50% chance, rightly said by Mona, that every second can get affected, and who will be the second is difficult to judge. So there is a high chance of getting breast cancer if there is a BRCA positive mother. So that is what the risk is. So you have to have a counseling first and then only do this test, because the implication of a positive test is just tremendous. Suppose this test turns positive, and then if they check for a patient's daughter and she also is BRCA positive, the ideal recommendation will be to undergo removal of bilateral breast, and which is very, very not so acceptable currently in our social structure. Not everyone can be as brave as Angelina Jolie, but that is what the treatment is. So doing the test is very easy, but dealing with the test if it is positive is going to be very, very demanding. So we always ask for a pre-test counseling. It's a proper session where we prepare the patients, the relatives, and everyone else involved in that. Whether if it's positive, what steps are you going to take? And if you're going to take those steps, are you ready for it? And then we go ahead with the testing.
Okay. Our next question is, if any family history of cancer of other organs, are we at a risk of breast cancer?
So yes, so this is what genetic cancer I just spoke about. So if there is a ovarian cancer in the family, especially with age less than 50 years, if the person had at their younger age, ovarian cancer, breast cancer, sometimes uterine cancer, in male counterpart, pancreatic cancers. So there are few syndromes which are there. So other parts of the body cancer, especially in younger patients, should always be investigated by a thorough family history first, and then there are certain genetic tests which should be done.
Next question is, what should one do if a hormone positive patient develops edema in one arm?
I know I didn't get this one.
What should one do if a hormone positive patient develops edema in one arm?
So if I am getting it right, it's a breast cancer patient who has been treated and is currently on hormones and develops edema on the hand. Right. So if I'm taking that right, it is It is a post-surgery complication which is seen when there is breast removal along with lymph node removal. Some patients do develop swelling on the operated side. So for this, we counsel our patient that right from the recovery from the surgery, entire life you have to do physiotherapy of that hand, take care of that operated side so that the hand doesn't swell. In spite of that, if there is some swelling which is occurring, you are supposed to go to, there are certain specialist physiotherapists who will guide you, various newer exercises or drainage methods by which you can reduce the edema. Then there is, there are certain garments which can be worn in the hand, which can reduce the edema. Then there are certain, compressive devices which can be used to reduce the edema in the hand. So in short, there is a treatment for it, but prevention is better than cure for this edema in the hand. So you can't become lax after a year or so. So most of our patients are very, very punctual when they are till the therapy, till the chemo is on. And once they are off chemo and only on hormone therapy, 3 monthly follow-up, when I ask them, most of them have stopped exercising. So we have to keep on reinforcing them that never stop exercising your operated arm. Okay.
Next question by Pratna. How can we manage breast cancer in case of pregnant women diagnosed with breast cancer during pregnancy?
So it's a very, very good question. It's a rare scenario, honestly, but we have treated many. So breast cancer in pregnancy should be treated as a normal patient without pregnancy. Okay. Here again, the criteria is the mother is more important for us when she comes to us. Of course, saving the child also is what we are looking at. So it depends upon in which trimester she gets a pregnancy, and we modify the treatment accordingly. If the organogenesis has occurred, say first 3 months when the organs are formed for the baby, it is very easy to give chemotherapy. We have given chemotherapy to pregnant ladies. Then if they were positive, we have operated them after that. And then, the radiation and other things have been completed in the later half after the pregnancy. So it all depends upon in which trimester we are having this pregnancy. Most of the time, we are able to give complete chemotherapy, barring few drugs which should be avoided, which we avoid. And there are substitutes for it, actually. So we have managed effectively like any other patient who is non-pregnant.
Okay. The next question is by Mayura. Can IVF treatment be one of the factors for breast cancer?
So infertility per se increases the risk of breast cancer. IVF treatment does have some hormone manipulation, but that the direct cause? Very difficult to comment because infertility itself has exposed you to so much of hormone in your body for many years. So I don't think so. It's really valid. But yes, all those patients who undergo IVF are usually most of them who are having infertility issues. So incidence is definitely higher in that group of patients.
Next question is by Mugdha. My father and I has been detected by colon cancer. Father's was 13 years back and mine was 2 years back. Is my daughter, who is 5 years old, at high chances of the same?
So again, we have to see, here there is a clear pattern where there is 2 in the close relatives getting colonic cancers. So we have to see at what age the father got the colonic cancer and of course the daughter. But whatever said and done, so there is a clear, strong association here in her family. So you need to see your treating oncologist to assess things and if possibly advise you an appropriate genetic test to assess the risk of familial inheritance of cancers, in your case colonic cancers, and then we can guide you accordingly. So you need to see your doctor just for discussing this genetic, angle.
Next question is by Maria. Can estrogen cancer be lowered by removal of ovaries after menopause so that hormonal therapy can be reduced?
Correct. So this is an important, question because this is how we treat patients. So if the patients are hormone positive, depending upon whether they are premenopausal or postmenopausal, the hormone therapy is given differently. For a premenopausal, the hormone treatment is different from a postmenopausal female. But if the patient has achieved menopause already, which Maria's question is, then you can't reduce the hormone therapy by removing the ovaries. If you have achieved menopause, your ovaries are non-functional; they are not functioning. So the ovary is not contributing to the increased chance of breast cancer. So you can't stop. You should continue with the hormone therapy, which is recommended for postmenopausal patients for the number of years recommended by your treating oncologist. It can be 5 years, it can be 7 or 10 years based on what type of tumor you had. So if the ovaries are not already menopausal, there is no point in talking about the ovaries, but that cannot help you in cutting down the number of years of hormone therapy. In contrast to that, in premenopausal females, sometimes to get a better effect of hormone therapy, we do remove the ovaries or we give some injections to suppress the ovaries and then change the hormone to them. But we never stop the hormone. We never reduce the number of years of hormone.
Next question is by Alice. I have fibroadenoma tumor in both the breast. Biopsy report states that there is no evidence of malignancy. Anything to worry about? I'm 24.
So this is what I have discussed earlier twice, that fibroadenomas are benign tumors in the breast seen in younger patients. They can have waxing waning course throughout the patient's life. Most of the times they start reducing by first childbirth. In some, they may remain as it is. So there is a very small percentage that they may develop into cancer. Having said that, there's nothing to worry, but you have to just be cautious that any sudden change in the size of the fibroadenoma or around that skin or any other discharge, you are supposed to immediately report to the doctor.
Next question is by Tripti. Does chemotherapy induce the lymphedema in breast cancer patients?
No, chemotherapy doesn't cause lymphedema in breast cancer patients. It is the surgery which has been done, which has reduced the flow in that hand, which causes, and more commonly it is not exercising properly or taking care causes the swelling.
Next question is, what is the survival rate of TNBC?
So TNBC, also called as triple negative breast cancer. When I say triple negative, it is usually those signals I'm talking about. So ER/PR, these are the hormone which are negative, and there is something called as HER2, which is another signal in breast cancer which is negative. If all these three common signals are negative, this breast subtype is called as triple negative breast cancer. Now, triple negative breast cancer is a very, very heterogeneous disease. It's not one disease. There are, say, at least 4 to 5 subtypes of triple negative breast cancers. And based on the stage and the subtypes, outcomes can be different. Again, just to impress upon, if diagnosed early, say in stage 1 and 2, 90% can be cured, 90%. But in advanced stages, they do come back more aggressively than the hormone positive tumors.
Okay. The next question is by Jaina. There has been a breast cancer detective bra. How useful is that, and any side effects of the same?
I didn't get it.
There has been a breast cancer detective bra. How useful is that, and any side effects of the same?
No, so I'm not really an expert right now. I'm not really aware. I mean, I've heard about it, but I've not really delved into details of that to understand this. But most of the things, all these things are more of a fad than actually real, effective methods. So right now, with not so much of evidence all over, I would not suggest you to go for those things. What it simply is we are applying a lot of, science to detecting things. There is something called as, iMouse or iPad. It's a device with which we can just keep on the breast and try to map out the areas and find out abnormal areas. It can give signals. Based on that chip, they are using it in bras and to find out, whether you can find. But if you ask me, these are all more like not so useful methods in early detection and prevention. What I mentioned was, breast self-examinations, mammograms, and all those things have got lot of impact in early detection and changing the outcome, rather than me, advocating anything like, breast detecting bra and all those things. I think right now it's time before we commit to any, fancy thing like that.
Next question is by Jayashri. Are there any specific exercise to reduce the chances of breast cancer?
So there's no specific exercise. Any exercise which is aimed at maintaining an ideal body weight, any form you can take, right from walking to jogging, cycling, swimming, Pilates, whatever you can do to maintain an ideal body weight is good. So there is no particular specific exercise which will have a better advantage over the other exercise.
Okay. Next question is by Richa. Can you please elaborate immunotherapy? Presently, chemotherapy is going on.
So immunotherapy, as I told, in breast cancer, it is used only in a select subgroup of breast cancer called as triple negative breast cancer. It is effective therapy for breast cancer, triple negative. It is currently used only in advanced cancers of triple negative and not in early stage. So I think immunotherapy in breast cancer has not really arrived. It's quite early days for immunotherapy in breast cancer, but yes, it's an effective therapy for a select subgroup of patients.
Next question is by Mr. Khan. Is it safe for survivors to take COVID vaccine? Any test required to be done before going for vaccine?
No, you can take COVID vaccine. So the kind of vaccine currently we are using are all safe for our patients and survivors. So you should, without any hesitation, go ahead with the vaccination. Of course, the vaccination doctor will ask you certain questions about allergies and other things. But from the cancer point of view, you can go ahead with it.
Next question is by Mr. Shah. What steps should be taken to not be affected by hereditary breast cancer?
So hereditary breast cancer is an inherited cancer. So there is a particular risk of developing breast cancer. Say, suppose we take a commonest example of BRCA mutation. So in your lifetime, if a person has a breast cancer, lifetime there is a 40 to 60% chance of developing breast cancer. By no means, by any tablet or any other exercise, we can really change this. The only thing which we can do is removal of the normal looking breast is one, and after the childbirth is over, removal of both the ovaries. So if you do these two surgeries, your risk of getting breast cancer reduces significantly. But there are no exercises, no other modalities which will reduce the incidence. So it's a chance of getting breast cancer. It can be reduced by not undergoing two surgeries where you're removing the breast and the ovaries later part of your life.
Next question is, what should be the diet in breast cancer patient? Any diet modification recommended?
No, so there is no direct correlation between post-treatment patients. It is true throughout, for even a normal person to a breast cancer patient on therapy to a breast cancer patient who has completed therapy. You should avoid too much of carbohydrates, lot of red meat, and too much of fatty diet, which is not good for us otherwise also, for cardiac point of view, diabetes point of view. So if you talk about your ideal diet, should have a little bit less of carbohydrate, adequate proteins. Fat is there, but it should not be fat which is dalda and all, which have a different kind of fat which is not so healthy fat. So you have to be, there's no magic diet actually. It is about following a very well balanced diet, less of sugars, less of carbohydrate, good exercise, and all this eventually should lead to a ideal body weight and a good level of fitness. So that is what is going to help us in long run.
Okay. Next question is by Celine. How often should a mammogram be done? Is it safe to do it yearly or every 2 years?
So this is a very debatable topic currently. So for those areas or those part of the world where the cancer incidence is high, breast cancer incidence is high, doing mammogram once a year after the age of 40 years is recommended. By doing that, they have actually reduced the mortality because of breast cancer, since they are picking up cancer at an early stage. So there is a big difference between India and say Western countries or America, where breast cancer, which is detected by mammogram, is more commoner than detected by a doctor or the patient reporting. And this has definitely changed. So doing a screening program and picking up breast cancer early can change the outcome. But this is not true for those areas where the breast cancer incidence is low. So in India, there is a big, heterogeneity as far as the breast cancer cases are concerned. If you take the example of, metropolitan cities like Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, the incidence of breast cancer has increased significantly in last 15, 20, 30 years. But if you see, the rural registries say something like Barshi, which has maintained a quite good registry of cancers. Barshi is a small town in Maharashtra. If you see there again, breast cancer incidence is not increased dramatically. However, both are Indian females, but there is a big difference in the breast cancer, and that is because possibly of the westernization of our lifestyle and so many other factors environmental factors which has affected us in cities. So we are seeing so many breast cancers in cities, not so much into the rural areas. And this is the problem with us, because our population maximum is still in the rural areas, and a significant proportion now has migrated to urban cities. Whether we should recommend everyone doing mammogram once a year after 40 years is a matter of debate. How much impact it will have on the outcome, we are not that much sure. But as an oncologist on this forum, I would like to say that yes, at least around 40 years, once in 2 years, one can consider doing a mammogram. But focus on breast self-examinations once a month, clinical examination by a doctor once in 3 months, and doing a mammogram once in 2 years looks reasonable to me, although the recommendation is once in a year after age 40 years. And for those who have breast cancer history, it should start a little bit earlier based on when was the affected member got breast cancer.
Okay. Will I lose my hair with breast cancer treatment?
So it depends upon what treatment we give. Surgery will not cause hair loss. Radiation will not cause hair loss. Most of the times, hormone treatment also doesn't cause hair loss. Chemotherapy, most of them will cause some hair loss. Some may cause a complete loss of hair. Most of them are reversible, fortunately. So once you stop the therapy, in most of our patients, hair regrows in coming 4 to 5 months.
Okay. What is grade 3 tumor in TNBC?
So most of the TNBCs are higher grade. So there is a difference between a grade and a stage. Stage is where all the tumor has gone. It defines the stage. So if the tumor is only in the breast, not gone to the glands, it is a stage 1 or 2. If it is gone to the gland, it's stage 2, or roughly I'm telling you. But if the same tumor has gone to the bones, liver, lungs, it is stage 4. Now this is different from grade. Grade is the aggression of the tumor. How aggressive is the tumor? How rapidly the tumor is multiplying? So this is seen in the microscope by a pathologist. This grade is given by a pathologist. He will say the tumor is grade 1, which means the tumor is very slow growing and they will not multiply rapidly. Whereas grade 3 is a high grade tumor where it will multiply more rapidly.
Mammogram or sonomammogram, which is recommended more? As mammogram is more painful, can a woman go for sonomammogram, which is better?
So mammogram is the most preferred modality. Usually we add sonography to add on and to define certain lesions which we have picked up. It helps in augmenting the findings which we have. But mammogram should be the modality of choice.
I guess it's the second last question. How will we know if the cancer has come back? What should I watch for?
So someone who's been treated for breast cancer should be on a regular follow-up. In the first 2 years, we say once in 3 months follow-up with your treating doctor, where some basic blood test may be done to look for side effects of chemotherapy, delayed ones, and examination of both the breast operated areas should be done by the doctor once in 3 months. And there will be certain set of tests which the doctors may ask once in 3 or 6 months for the first 2 years. After that, once in 6 months, you have to follow up with your doctor for the next 3 years, and thereafter once a year, depending upon what tumor you have. So this is a protocol, which is a follow-up protocol, which you should follow up very religiously so that you're not missing on things. From your end, you have to look for any new finding, say any lump new, any discharge, any other, say jaundice, any bone pain, any increased cough, which is not going after antibiotics and other things for 2 weeks, you should report to the treating oncologist.
All right. The next is, how long do injections go on even after chemotherapy?
No, I didn't get this question.
How long do injections go on even after chemotherapy?
So this question is not framed properly. Chemotherapy is given through injections. So there are various protocols where we give chemotherapy for 3 months, 4 months, or 6 months. After the chemotherapy is over, then there is nothing like injections going on. There is a targeted therapy called as trastuzumab, which if the patient is HER2 positive, this patient needs to undergo in an adjuvant setup. So there are 2 types of sittings. One is if the cancer is not advanced, it was a local tumor in the breast, but it is HER2 positive, one of the signals which I spoke about. So this patient will undergo surgery followed by chemotherapy along with a targeted therapy called as trastuzumab. I think someone has asked for CanMab. So this is the same injection I'm talking about, trastuzumab. So this needs to be given along with chemotherapy. And once the chemotherapy is over, total duration is 1 year. Sorry. So up till 1 year in a curative patient, you should give.
Okay, so we are taking last questions of the day because we are getting many questions right now, but we can't answer all of them. So the last question is, how will we know if the treatment is working?
So two things are there. I will take this again in two setups. One is when the tumor was not spread to any part, and we have done this with the intent of curing the patient. So in that case, we operate, we give radiation, we give chemotherapy. And whether this is working or not, you can come to know only by follow-up. So regular follow-up once in 3 months we do. If there is no recurrence of the cancer, then we say that, oh, your treatment has actually worked and this patient is cancer-free. The other setup is when the patient presents to us with an advanced cancer. The tumor has spread to the liver and bones and other areas. Here we start some form of therapy based on what the patient is having, which type of tumor the patient is having. It can be oral hormone therapy, it can be chemotherapy. So we do start therapy, and at the end of 2 months or 2.5 months, we will do a repeat examination, either by a PET scan or a CT scan, to find out what is the difference or change in the size of the tumor at various areas, and that will tell us whether your therapy is working or not. If the lump is very large and we can see visibly, many of the patients tell me that, doctor, this is fantastic, it has worked very well. My tumor has reduced by more than 50%. So that is how we'll come to know whether you're responding or not.
All right, doctor. Thank you so much for this informational session. I guess we have cleared most of the doubts. And also, guys, if you want to consult our leading oncologist, either by visiting the hospital or via teleconsult from the comfort of your home, please book your appointment by calling 022 6777 8181, or you can book online at www.pdhindujahospital.com. Thank you so much, doctor, for the lovely chat.
Thank you, Sonam. Thank you, everyone, for attending and being interactive and asking so many questions. I just guess I could have, taken, more questions. One put by Manjari. I will just say that, 2D echo we do because very rarely someone can develop chemo-related cardiac dysfunction. Usually it is a mild one where the patient doesn't realize any symptom. But, it's a part of protocol to be very safe that we are taking care of the heart and, not giving chemotherapy, knowing that the heart is not functioning well. Okay. So all of you have a nice day and nice weekend. Stay safe. Wear your mask, use sanitizers. Still, we are not out of COVID storm. So please, my request to all those who are there, around 70 people I can see, be very vigilant. Don't go off guard till we see the pandemic completely settling down. Thank you so much.